Well, thank you very much to our Bloomington Restorations, Inc. 2025 annual meeting. It's so great to be in here. We need a little bit more volume. Just a little bit more. Louder, louder. How's that? Better? Better. Very good. So for those of you who didn't hear me before, welcome to our Bloomington Restorations annual meeting here in the year 2025. We're happy to be back here at the Farr Gallery, which is a great venue for us. Great adaptive reuse, so we always like to see that. So we're going to start off with our membership meeting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to recognize our preservation partners. So if you are here with the City of Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission, please stand up. So we have Noah Sandweiss, we have Duncan Campbell, we have Elizabeth Mitchell as well, who's our speaker tonight, Karen Duffy. Thank you very much. And then if you're here with the County Historic Preservation Board of Review, go ahead and stand up. So there's me, there's Susan Snyder-Salmon here as well. Debbie Reed was unable to join us this evening at the last minute, so we give her our thoughts. And so we thank those partners. And then anybody who is currently on the board of Bloomington Restorations, go ahead and stand up. Very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the election of board members. So the nominees are Elizabeth Cox-Ash and Leanne Luce. And can we have a motion to renew for them? Somebody give a motion. Anybody? Yep, thank you. So moved. Can we get a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, very good, thank you. And then the election of officers. We have me as president, thank you. It's a little bit odd to do. Vice President Pete Kinney, Treasurer Elizabeth Cox-Ash, and Secretary Jan Sorby. Can we get a motion? So moved, very good, thank you, Duncan. And can we get a second? Okay, very good. And all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to move on to our BRI Historic Preservation Awards. We have Steve Wyatt, our Executive Director here. Thank you, Steve, for getting this all set up. And you're going to start us off with the first award. I thought he was doing that comedian thing of like going downstairs, and it was like, Steve. Very good. Okay.
This is the World Courier Building, newspaper.
Can't hear you, Steve.
This is the World Courier Building. It's on 4th Street. It was built in 1911. So this is a pretty early photo for this newspaper building. John Nichols was the architect, and you probably don't even think it's here anymore unless you've been by lately, because it really got changed. So that's what it looked like not too long ago. Tonight, our first brick is for Outstanding Preservation Project, and I'd like to welcome Justin Fox up to receive the award for the work he did to bring back a lot of the original detail. And I'll show you that next.
I'm Justin Fox. I did the building. Thanks, BRI. It all started out with a photo and ended with this. It was fantastic. We had a great time, and I had a lot of good people around me to help me get it finished. Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Some of you may know this building, though it did not look quite as glorious there for a while. Who knows what this building is? Who does not currently own the building? Anybody remember what this building is? You're right, yeah. Hinsenberg School. So that's a lovely old picture of it. We have a dedicated person who has been spending a lot of time, heart and soul, and I'm sure lots of money and sweat, bringing the school back to very much what it looked like before, inside and out. I'm happy she's a neighbor of mine. She comes from a family who does a lot of historic preservation projects that we've been proud of. I think you were going to have the grand opening like April something 2020? April 3rd. So I was like, hey, do you know what I'm going to do as a historic preservation nerd? We're going to go to the grand opening, and then we're going to celebrate my birthday. And it'll be the best night ever. Well, that was April 3rd, 2020. So she has been tirelessly working and had a series of open houses through that time, working on inside and out. So we would like to present her with a brick for historic preservation. We love having these buildings repurposed. So, oops, not this brick. This is not your brick. Come on up. It's Sarah Hamidovich. With Vet Environmental Engineering, correct. Congratulations, here's your brick. Very good, and if you'd like to say a few words, you can. Would you like to? Very good.
Thank you for this. This is very emotional. I'm gonna try not to cry. The first time I walked in here, I just fell in love with the building. It was crumbling, falling apart, kind of forgotten on the near west side. Most people think it's Sanders, but it was just kind of forgotten about. Everyone thought that it was haunted. We recently determined it's actually flying squirrels. We had a family of flying squirrels living in the attic that would knock pen cups off of desks and things. But I mean, it's an amazing place, and it was the heart of a very poor community through time. And we've had so many alumni of our little school come back through time and say that this was the only place that I could go to be warm. And this is the only place I could go to be fed. And that they would walk in the morning and it smelled like fried chicken and homemade bread. And I mean, that's what made me know that we did the right thing. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay. See if we could get some good like sibling parent competition and you guys can just keep trying to battle for preservation awards. We'll go for that. You're naturally competitive, so I think you can do it. Okay, well, it has been my honor to serve with the next person. Susan Snyder-Salmon, we're giving you an award this evening for your work with our stone walls around Monroe County. Now, I don't know how many of you get as much Irish news as I do, because I get quite a bit, but UNESCO just designated the ones in Ireland as a World Heritage Site. And many of ours are built by some immigrants who came over as well. So we have Susan Snyder-Salmon for a preservation award here. Come on up. And this is the Rosemary Miller Activism Award. And it is not made of limestone and in a wall, but. And if you'd like to speak, you can. Would you like to?
I can taste it. And then
Okay, yeah, you would know. Yeah, well, it's not Harrodsburg limestone, I can tell you that much, yeah. Doesn't look like Chex Mix. Here, do you want my...
So thank you, yes. And I fell in love with these walls. Oh golly, I grew up in Bloomington, and we used to pass by Covenanter Cemetery all the time, going to what was then the mall, which was this big place you'd go that was really cool. And I fell in love with them at the time and realized that there were a whole lot more of them out there. When I had a chance to serve on the county board, I learned that we were trying to find the rest of them and get them documented. I'm happy to say we may be about somewhere between 80 to 85% listed as to what is left and still standing or falling down. And the next thing is to really put that into some sort of a workable list and see if we can't find a way to restore some of them. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And that is a good reminder. This room is filled with the ears and eyes of all things Monroe County and Bloomington history. So if you see a little piece of wall peeking out somewhere, you know who to contact so we can get it documented. And several others of you have those pieces of stories that we love to hear and love to have you share with the public as well. I believe the next award is going to be presented by Leanne and Elizabeth. Is that correct? Leanne, okay. Here we go. There you go.
So Elizabeth and I do the open days together and very much work together at times with the volunteers. And so she nominated, and of course we all majorly agreed on the next lady. So we can announce who it is.
Jeanette Robertson. She is a lovely lady with a creative spirit. She's been a great help as a volunteer, contributing to the garden cleanup, Christmas decorating, and she's even played her dulcimer at Christmas open houses. She is an A1 docent, and she was one of Daisy's former students, which is a special connection. She is a seamstress, and this is her creative side, and sewn colorful items such as quilts, towels, handmade ornaments, bookmarks, etc. And she has been donating the proceeds of what she sells to our open days to help with future projects in the future. Right. She adds hospitality at
She adds hospitality and graciousness to the visitors' experience. So I'd like for Jeanette to come up. She gets a brick. I use mine for a lot of things. I guess the last thing would just be, it's so nice to have, we have a good skeleton crew of volunteers, and she's one of them. She works pretty hard. Do you have anything you want to?
Just that I'm just glad to be able to do it because Daisy meant so much to me.
She said that from the first time, so we love her, so let's give her another round of applause.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, one of the things I want you to notice is even though we really do care a lot about buildings, they all connect to people. We have people like Susan, who's a genealogist and tries to link the buildings to the people who live there. We have a school that people have memories of. We have Daisy Garton, who was a beloved music teacher. And so having buildings like the Farmstead, where people can come and have memories, even if they didn't grow up in Bloomington, it reminds them of someone's farmhouse that they used to spend time in. So we're happy to share that with people. I'm going to hand it over to Steve Wyatt to do updates on what we've been up to over the last year. There you go.
Devin just took my notes. I'd like to start tonight with our headquarters, our home, the Hinkle Garden Farmstead. We've had interns working in the past year, going through all the garden documents and materials. I mean, Daisy saved everything, so there's, 25, 30 boxes. It's a whole room full of stuff and boxes. So we're planning to produce a short book about the farmstead's history, taking advantage of the discoveries from the archives. But the farmstead is not just a house, of course. There's barns and outbuildings, including the carriage house. So that was in pretty rough shape, and we went through and got new siding milled to replace rotted and damaged siding, stabilized it, straightened it, repaired the foundation, and now it's ready for a new coat of paint this spring, so we're pretty excited about that. Out in the community, though, this house in Ellettsville, we're getting closer than ever to finding a buyer for it. We bought it the day before it's to be torn down, and been holding it, trying to find the right person who would agree to buy it from us and restore it. We came really close earlier this month with one party, but we didn't come to terms with them on price. But there's still other people coming to us, so I think it's going to be more a matter of when and not if. So we're expecting maybe this year even, probably this year I would guess. What's the date on it? It's, according to the survey, I think it's from like 1870, Gothic Revival. Yeah, it's a beautiful house with great scale inside. So anybody who loves old houses walks inside and they see the vision for what it could be, even though it's pretty much a wreck. It was abandoned for decades before we got a hold of it. Okay, so also this house on Cherokee Drive in Bloomington, we bought it as a possible affordable housing project to sell to a home buyer who's moderate income or low income. And we're still in the process of talking to contractors, hoping to find a way to get it done under budget. So that's, I think, still a possibility. If not, we will sell it to someone who will agree to restore it. But at this point, I think it still looks pretty hopeful that we can get it worked out as an affordable housing project. And this house I'll talk about in a moment. With the demand for student housing combined with zoning changes to increase density, more old houses in our community are being approved for demolition. We're in talk with developers to get options to purchase houses that can feasibly be moved. And then for the ones that can't be moved, we're going in and salvaging doors, windows, hardware, other materials before the houses are torn down. In the Green Acres neighborhood, we reached an agreement with the developer for the option to purchase this house, and we're looking to do maybe a couple more too within that development. And at this point, we do have someone who wants to move the house to a vacant lot within the neighborhood, so things look pretty good for this one to be saved and not be demolished. And that's, in a nutshell, some of our major activities in the past year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, some great things going on overall. So just watch, and like I said earlier, you are our eyes and ears. There's only so many of us on the board who can look at different areas of the county or hear different people's thoughts or plans for areas. So it's always good for us to hear early as possible about any properties that are endangered because our time frame is often quite narrow. So thank you to those who share that with us. Let me get myself back in order here. Steve didn't steal my notes, so I don't know what to do now. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to transition to introduce our speaker here. And we are very fortunate to have Elizabeth Mitchell here in Bloomington, a historian, a documentarian, doing a lot of work with the African American community here in Bloomington, as well as around the state, projects in West Baden. You know, we could lose a lot of people to West Baden doing projects, so we're very lucky to have you here and doing what you do with historic preservation here, especially noting it's Black History Month, and there's a lot of things in our Monroe County history that we don't fully know or understand that we need to learn more about. So it's very good to know that there are people who are focused on that and making sure that these communities are not forgotten and that we're able to learn from them and celebrate their history here. So I'm going to have Elizabeth Mitchell come on up. And after her presentation, we will have a question and answer session, so jot down your questions if you'd like to. I expect with this crowd, there will be some good questions.
Close to me.
Yeah, feel free, if you want, we can probably get it at a comfortable position here for you.
Okay.
Does that work for you?
Can you hear me? Okay. Is this all right? Or can you hear me in the back? Okay, great. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I was excited to come and share a little bit of what I know, a little nugget here and there. Before I get started, I don't want to forget to tell you about other projects that I've been working on. I've been really busy and extremely happy about retirement because I get to do what I love to do. I have a new documentary, and it will air sometime on public television, but you will get to see it on a large screen if you come to the Monroe County Public Library on Tuesday, March the 4th at 6 o'clock. It's called Generation at War, and the film covers before, during, and after the Civil War and the effects it had on the people of Indiana. Everybody talks about the people in the South, but there were some things going on in Indiana before, during, and after the Civil War. So please come and support that. Yes, ma'am.
Which library?
Downtown, Kirkwood, 202 East Kirkwood, the auditorium. Next, Resilience Productions. I'm part of a documentary team. I'm part of a team that puts plays on stage with Dr. Gladys Devane, my older sister. I'm the baby girl. We have a new play coming out in March, which is part of our Resilience Productions Remarkable Women series. We are so proud to present Your Honor, Judge Viola Taliaferro. So you will get to see the legacy that she has left. Her life, her early stages. I knew she was all that and a bag of chips, but I didn't know she was double all that and a bag of chips. So if you want to know about her life and her legacy, please come and see our play, the Monroe County History Center, who we partner with this series. We have 4 dates. We added another date because we have sellout shows. So please, and if you want to know about tickets, you got to ask Daniel, because I don't do that part. All righty. This presentation presents how segregated restrictions help shape the existence of the near Northwest Side Historic District of Bloomington. The very fabric of this historic district are structures pertaining to the residents' faith, employment, housing, education, as well as entertainment. It is my hope to share with you the integrity of this neighborhood by edifying the structures that were constructed during the segregation era. And as you know, structures are about the people. So I will tell you a little bit
about the people of this district as well. The near North Side Historic District is significant for its contribution to the ethnic heritage of Bloomington, so its greatest period of growth was from 1890 to 1995 and shows a direct relationship to the relocation of Showers Factory in 1884 and the migration of African Americans to the West Side. The Showers brothers employed the greatest number of African Americans and gave them positions as laborers, packers, and craters. These jobs provided financial stability for many families and the opportunity to improve their living conditions for themselves and their families. Showers Brothers had the reputation of being a progressive and generous company to all of its employees, developing incentives like workmen's compensation, home financing, religious services, and entertainment for its workers. At one point, the African American employees were able to return the company's generosity. Several African American workers loaned money to the Showers brothers after the fire of 1884. In exchange, Showers offered them lifetime employment. Now, it is important to remember that stone mills, foundries, and other businesses located in Bloomington did not employ African Americans. Bethel AME Church. Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church was founded in September of 1870. In 1922, this two-story limestone structure was built in the classical revival style with Tudor revival details. The church was designed by John Nichols, a prominent Bloomington architect. In the 1930s, this church was famous for their Thursday night chicken dinners, which also attracted parishioners from Second Baptist Church and other churches, as well as white neighbors from the West Side. John Nichols was one of the first architects and general contractors in Bloomington. Besides designing Bethel AME, he also designed many residential buildings, such as the Showers Graham House at 4030 North Washington Street, as well as the Showers Brothers Administration Building at 601 North Morton. The Kirkwood Observatory is one of his most notable designs. Nichols' fingerprints as an architect are found throughout the city of Bloomington, including his own home at 812 North College Avenue, serving as a fine demonstration of his legacy. You're probably wondering how a congregation of African Americans could afford to build Bethel AME Church on the corner of 7th and Rogers. Well, it was because of the efforts of one woman, Mattie Jacobs Fuller, who contributed significantly to the construction of this edifice. Mattie had a natural aptitude as a songstress and was gifted a small Billhorn folding organ with private music lessons to learn how to play it. She performed on the lawn of the courthouse and raised over $13,000, giving all of it to Bethel AME Church for the purchase of that lot and the laying of the foundation. This is the interior of Bethel AME on September 1st, 1945. The congregation of Bethel AME in the 1950s proudly stood for this photo. This is the interior of Bethel AME today. Established on March of 1872, Second Baptist Church congregation met in the homes of church members before building their small frame wood church in 1873 on the northeast corner of 8th and Rogers. In 1907, the congregation designated their first official pastor, Reverend Moses Porter. Porter helped his congregation build a new church in 1913 on the southwest corner of 8th and Rogers, where the church stands today. The building was designed by architect Samuel Plato and could be called Romanesque style. It is one of the first stone churches built by African Americans in the state of Indiana. Reverend Porter pastored the Second Baptist Church for almost 50 years until he passed away in 1952. The next distinguished pastor was Reverend Ernest D. Butler. During his 43 years as pastor of Second Baptist Church, he became one of the most prominent leaders in Bloomington. Butler's accomplishments changed the very nature of Bloomington. At one time, African Americans here in Bloomington were treated like second-class citizens. He forged an alliance with ministers from white churches to encourage the political and business leaders to change their hiring practices. Because of Reverend Butler's efforts, Bloomington hired the first black police officer, the first black fireman, and the first black school teacher, and this happened in the late 60s, early 70s. He pastored Second Baptist Church from 1959 until his death in 2003. In 1983, this church was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Samuel Plato, who is nationally recognized as a pioneer architect and builder contract in the United States. His career began as an architect and building contractor in Marion, Indiana, at a time when segregation and racism made it challenging for African American professionals. During World War II, he was one of the few African American contractors in America to be awarded building contracts, which included dormitory halls for more than 800 African American defense workers in Washington, D.C. He also received contracts to build 38 post offices across America. 8 of his buildings are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. These include Broadway Temple and AME Zion Church in Louisville, Kentucky, the J. Woodrow Wilson House in Marion, Indiana, and of course, Second Baptist Church, Bloomington, Indiana. This is the interior of Second Baptist Church. At one point, it had been renovated with the help of Mr. Bill Cook. And this is what it looked like in Christmas of 2024. Mercy Mission Church was founded by Helen P. Hartfield on March 21st, 1954. The church was originally based in a rented room located on the square. The church has had numerous locations before holding services for a short time at 907 West 8th in the home of Mrs. Hartfield. Hartfield started the church with a few families and members from her previous church, Christ Temple. The two congregations had long shared a close relationship. The site at 2017 North Elm Street was originally the home of Christ Temple Church, which was constructed in 1940, but has undergone subsequent renovations and expansions. This is the interior of Mercy Church today. The property on northeast corner of Elm and West 7th Street was purchased for $3,000 to build a new school for African American elementary school students. Edwin Dopers and Company were the architects. The Banneker School, built in the Tudor Revival style, opened on December the 7th, 1915, as a segregated school with 93 students. T.C. Johnson, its first principal, named the school after Benjamin Banneker, an African American who was an author, mathematician, astronomer, inventor, and surveyor. The school gymnasium was completed in 1941 using the New Deal funds through the National Youth Administration. The surrounding wall and steps were built by the WPA. At its height, the school served over 100 students in 2 multi-grade classrooms taught by Mrs. Porter and Mrs. Evans. Graduates from Banneker went on to the historically integrated Bloomington High School. The Banneker School closed in 1951 with the integration of school systems. In 1955, the building was acquired by the city and renamed Westside Community Center. But in recognition of its historic significance, it was renamed in 1994 the Banneker Community Center. The Banneker Community Center is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. T.C. Johnson was the last principal of the colored school and the first principal of Benjamin Banneker School. He was an eminent educator who later went on to teach at Crispus Attucks High School in Indianapolis. Mary Alice Evans devoted her adult life to education. Mrs. Evans taught the first, second, and third grade class at Banneker from 1927 until 1951. Her students were known for their artwork and skits and plays, and they performed on various occasions. She was retained by MCCSC as an assistant librarian at Bloomington High School until her retirement in 1957. Mrs. Evans was married to Maurice Evans, a highly respected member of the community. Mrs. Georgia Porter had 26 years of teaching experience before coming to Banneker in 1924, where she taught the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. She was often described by her students as very strict, but kind. She was so strict from what the oldest black man living today, Bert O'Bannon, told me, she just looked at you and you snapped to attention. She was the spouse of Reverend Porter, pastor of Second Baptist Church. Mrs. Porter retired at the age of 73. She left a rich legacy of great service, dedication, and determination for the community and her students. Both of those teachers are fondly remembered. Look at these cute little kids from the 1946 class at Banneker. This is the last class from Mrs. Evans, and like I previously said, she taught first, second, and third graders. If you were to step inside Banneker today, this is what you will see. The photo on the left was Mrs. Porter's classroom, which is now a library named after the two teachers, the Porter Evans Library. The middle photo of the stairway going up to the second floor where the kids used to roller skate before they built a gym. And the photo on the right was Mrs. Evans' classroom, and as you can see, it's now a kitchen. Gone, but not forgotten. Bloomington's African American community have lost many structures that were significant to them due to various reasons. Most were demolished for progress. The other residents have passed, older residents have passed away, and the younger people have moved away, and of course, there has been gentrification. So, the following structures that I'm going to talk about are gone or not used as they were originally built for, but they are not forgotten by the African American community. The colored school. Central School at 202 East 6th Street was the first school built in 1819 to educate children in Bloomington. It could be said that this school was somewhat integrated because the top floor was for the colored students and the bottom floor was for the white students. In 1869, a law mandated the education of colored children had to be with a separate enumeration. And as you know, when laws are passed, nothing takes place immediately except for what's going on now. So anyway, so it wasn't until 1874 that Central School became the school for colored children, because the white students were moved to a new building with all the modern conveniences on South College Avenue, where the convention center is now located. And that left this dilapidated building with no electricity and plumbing for the children of color. The white community, not the black community, the white community began calling it the colored school. This two-story brick schoolhouse became Bloomington's first segregated grade school. By August 5th, 1915, the building and lot were purchased for $12,000, and the colored school was torn down to make way for the new 31,000 Carnegie Library that is now Monroe County History Museum, the home of Daniel. In 1910, Halston Vashon Eagleson purchased 70 acres of land in Unionville, Indiana for $2,500. He purchased the property with an idea in mind. He wanted to build an orphanage for colored kids. His idea was to establish an industrial school for colored children and name it Industrial City Orphanage. His plan was to teach the children how to make bricks, grow berries, and do general farm work, as well as to educate them in other areas. Unfortunately, for Mr. Eagleson, he was unable to sustain his idea due to debt, the heavily mortgaged farm, as well as owing money for a team of horses and a wagon that he bought on credit. An IU professor by the name of U.G. Weatherly didn't like the idea. So he called a meeting to report on his concerns about Mr. Eagleson's proposed institution. While no efficient action was taken, there was a unanimous sentiment that they would discourage him from building this establishment. They did not want an orphan asylum for colored children. So in reality, it never opened. African American students and faculty had opened the black market in the fall of 1968 to sell books, records, artwork, clothing, and jewelry imported from Africa or made by African Americans. In that year, students formed the African American Student Association and occupied the stadium during Little 500 for 38 hours with demands to increase the number of black students. Black professors, they wanted that too. And they also wanted IU to start a Black Studies program, which eventually they did. This was met by resistance from the white establishment, and the black market was firebombed on December 26, 1968. Two men with affiliation with the local Klan here in Bloomington confessed that they were the ones that firebombed this building. The area was donated to the city in 1976 and is maintained as People's Park. The barbering and beauty businesses provided an opportunity for African Americans, not only here in Bloomington, but across America, to own businesses and commercial real estate. Pleasant Evans arrived in Bloomington in 1884, and he was one of the earliest black barbers. In 1914, he was the first African American to own a building downtown after purchasing the First National Bank located at 210 West Kirkwood Avenue, which is the alley bar today. He was called the Dean of Bloomington Barbers and was active in Republican politics, but in the early 1900s, at that time, his clientele was segregated because he feared his business might be affected if a black man were seen sitting in his chair getting a haircut. Pleasant Evans is on the left and his son Maurice is on the right. If a black man wanted to get his hair cut by Mr. Evans, he had to go to his home after dark. We spoke of Hawson Vashon Eagleson. He was a barber. He arrived in Monroe County in 1880. He was born into slavery in 1851 and would become a prominent barber with a large family that would make its mark not only in Bloomington, but Indiana University. He was one of the founders of Bethel AME Church. Hawson Vashon Eagleson owned a barber shop at 109 South College. His children, 6 of them, graduated with degrees, some more than one, from Indiana University. No other family in Bloomington has produced that many college graduates. They are part of the Bridgewater family. They married, so that's Bridgewaters. We're back to Maddie. There was Maddie Jacobs Fuller's Hair Salon, which was located in the Allen building where the Uptown Cafe is today. She came to Monroe County with her parents and siblings from Kentucky just after the Civil War. Following the death of her mother, Maddie and her siblings were bound out, which meant they had to work as children for food and a place to stay. This constituted being as an indentured servant, despite the practice being illegal. Maddie worked in the home of Dr. and Mrs. Durant, who produced or provided her with an education. They didn't have children, they kind of treated her like a daughter. They sent her to Louisville, Kentucky, where she learned to dress hair and to make skin lotion. With these skills, she returned to Bloomington to work as a beautician and became the wealthiest African-American woman in Monroe County. Maddie Jacobs Fuller, in my opinion, should be recognized and honored in Bloomington like Madam C.J. Walker is recognized and honored in Indianapolis. As African Americans migrated to Monroe County, they created 3 black settlements and 2 early neighborhoods. The first settlement was known as Hensonburg, was founded by Preston Henson. He owned all the land in the area that was northeast quarter, section 21 in Bloomington Township, just about 2 3/4 quarter miles off 11th Street, west of Highway 37 and Vernal Pike. It was laid out in 1865 and appears on the maps. In 1865 to 1908, the population grew to about 100 residents. Interstate 69 now cuts right through what was once Hensonburg, and there are very few buildings left. The second early African American settlement was called Chandlerville. The Chandler family had migrated from North Carolina and settled in Lick Creek Settlement in Orange County before migrating up to Monroe County. According to the Showers Brothers Shop News, on March 6, 1920, Thomas Chandler, a mulatto, purchased a farm in Northview Addition. This community was located in the northwest section of Bloomington, adjoining Arlington Road, 4546 bypass. That population was about 80 to 100 residents in 1936. Last but not least was the settlement called the Woods or Woodyard. It was located 2.5 miles straight out Highway 48. This community provided wood for the Monon Trail that stopped there daily at 10 o'clock a.m. It was considered an upper class neighborhood because they were able to financially support themselves because of the wood purchased by the Monon Railroad. The B.G. Pollard Lodge, 1242, was founded in 1947. The Lodge brothers purchased the lot in 1949, and in 1951, built an expansive basement. The original plan was to have a 2-level community center that would provide the near West Side African American community with a social and fraternal organization. It was nicknamed the Hole because the only access was from a stairway that descended into the basement. This facility served as a social hub and safe haven for African Americans through segregation and clean on up until the late 1990s. The Hole featured a bar, billiard table, jukebox, dance floor, and soul food prepared by the women who were called the New Dawn Daughters. In 1981, the Elks raised over $100,000 for the construction of the upper floor, featuring a meeting space with a capacity of 200. The last meeting held at the Elks Lodge took place in 2004. The Elks hosted all kinds of social events, including fashion shows, which you see on the left, and holiday parties that you see on the right. And in the middle was one of the best cooks in Bloomington. So when I interviewed the older African Americans and asked them about not being able to go to the restaurant, they said, "Why should we pay for nasty food?" The best cooks live in these houses on the west side, and they were often working in homes on the east side. We know where the good food is, and it's not downtown. Didn't bother them a bit. Prince Hall Freemasonry is the oldest and largest predominantly African American fraternity in the United States. The purpose of the Prince Hall Freemasonry in the jurisdiction of Indiana is a relevant, preeminent fraternity committed to attracting and developing and retaining men of high quality who strive for self-improvement and the opportunity to serve others. Prince Hall, Stone Lodge number 54, was chartered on August 14th, 1924 as a subordinate lodge in Bedford, Indiana. They relocated from Bedford to Bloomington and held meetings of the first and third Thursday at 115.5 North College from 1929 to 1932. The lodge moved into this building at 1022 West 7th Street around 1940. The building was sold in 2008 due to declining membership. Nevertheless, the chapter remains active today, sponsoring the Martin Luther King Essay Contest, educational programs, and you may see a group of men every now and then cleaning out the clogged drainage along Bloomington streets. That's the Masons. This is a clipping describing a Christmas party at one time that they gave. And this is recently the Masons from Bloomington participated in a parade in downtown Indianapolis. Samuel Dargan owned two homes, one at 316 North Grant Street and the other at 318 North Grant. The house, which you see here at 316 North Grant, was the first private dormitory for African American women because they could not stay on campus. And this started as early as 1925, that he housed students, women. His own modest house was located behind the dormitory. Dorgan was Indiana University's first African American law school graduate, and he was acclaimed for his oratorical skills. He was hired as the curator at IU's law library upon his graduation in 1909. He kept this position until his late 70s when he was retired. He was given the honorary title of Father of IU School of Law. They have a picture, someone painted a portrait of him, and it's hanging as soon as you walk in. Anybody heard of the Kappas? Only one black fraternity was founded at Indiana University's campus, originally named Kappa Alpha Nu in 1911, later renamed Kappa Alpha Psi in 1915, and they relocated several times. In 1961, the chapter relocated to 1469 East 17th Street and was dedicated to Elder Watson Diggs, who was one of the main organizers. An Indiana Historical Bureau marker was placed there in 2008. This location now houses the IU Police Department. This fraternity has a significant national presence with well over 200,000 members, still going strong. This is a photo of the small tin building. It was constructed in the backyard of Helen P. Hartfield's home at 907 West A Street. It served as a restaurant for the purpose of providing financial support to the fledgling church. For a short time, the church service were held in the basement of a home at this location. The original home has been replaced and the restaurant has been demolished. The Black Methodist Episcopal Church was actually named Taylor Chapel Methodist Episcopal Church and was located at 506 North Grant, directly across the street from the very first and old East Side Showers factory. And by 1940, this church was closed and it's been demolished. Here are newspaper clippings describing Christmas parties and prayer meetings at that church. During segregation, the African American entrepreneurship was at its height. Neighborhood groceries like this existed and were enjoyed by the community. A lot of the older African Americans here have fond memories of purchasing candy and soda pop at Boyd's Grocery. No one kept a picture of it, or else I showed you the real deal. One early neighborhood that was formed between 1872 and 1884 was commonly called Bucktown by the white community, not by the black community. And it existed in the area between Grant to Indiana and 10th Street to 8th Street, surrounding the first Showers Brothers factory that was built in 1872 at 9th and Grant. Since the Showers factory hired African American, this made sense. At the turn of the century, Bloomington's Evening World newspaper mentioned a small neighborhood known as Cherry Hill. It was proximate to an unrecorded private park called Cherry Hill Park. The period newspapers are filled with references to baseball games played at Cherry Hill Park. And there are news accounts that Cherry Hill Park was a focus of the black community social life. Cherry Hill Park possessed a grandstand, and there were at least 2 local colored baseball teams who played there in the early 1920s, the Black Diamonds and the Red Giants. Several white teams included the Showers Specials, a semi-professional team sponsored by Showers Furniture Manufacturing Company, also played there. At the time, it was called crossing race lines for a white team to play against a colored team. There was once an appearance by the Indianapolis ABC's Negro Baseball League. Today, there's no trace of this settlement or the ballpark. Thank you so much. This concludes. This concludes what I have to say. Now it's time for Q&A.
Questions? Yeah.
Talk about the migration period to Bloomington by the black community.
Yes.
And the time frame of that.
Pardon me?
The time frame of the immigration. The migration.
About this, have you been watching the PBS special?
I haven't, but that's.
Yeah, it's about that time when you wanted to leave the South. You didn't want to be lynched, so you came up here. So it was after the Civil War, probably after Reconstruction. History's repeating itself. We gave you too much, we're taking it back. And so then they began to hang women, children, mostly men, and they thought, we're leaving here. Some were even forced to stay by gunpoint. But they came here, they heard about Bloomington, they came up to Louisville. That wasn't that great being in Kentucky, so they came across the river, and slowly the word got around to come to Bloomington. Bloomington has always been unique. I grew up in Indianapolis under segregation. I'm a baby boomer. When we're gone, nobody's gonna know about what it was like. I remember. And so we grew up in Indianapolis. A segregated neighborhood was segregated, not here. The near west side always had whites. They were always kind of integrated. It might have been 85% black and the rest white. Second Baptist Church was always integrated. And when I tell people, black people didn't make those rules. What? No, we didn't. But you were always welcome because we knew one thing, and I'm gonna tell you what that one thing is. We knew your great-great-grandfather was my great-great-grandfather. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
The two-story school that was on the site, which is now the History Museum,
There was one school.
right?
It was a two-story school.
Two-story school.
Yeah.
The white
Yeah. Black people didn't name it that. We don't use that terminology.
They must have referred to it as something.
Well, see, it had a name when white kids were there. It was a central school. When the white kids left, they took the name. And the white community just said school for coloreds, the colored school. So I wasn't here, so I don't know what the black residents called it. And that's one question I did not ask the older ones. All the first interviews I've done, all of those people have passed away. I'm starting on the next batch. For the most part, they recognized that racism was here and that it was terrible, but it was that way all across the country. There was a colonization society here that it hung around to 1964, and their goal was to send all blacks back to Africa. Well, if I look in this room, who's black and who's white? Do you know? Have you done your DNA? You might be surprised. You might be my cousin.
Well, I'm interested in what special rules, if any, that the black Masons had.
Well, for one, they wanted men of high integrity. That's what I was told by when I was putting this piece together, and I got the information. They wanted high quality. If you were a drunkard, no. If you didn't take care of your family, no. You didn't have a job, no. Things like that. Being a real man, what a real man is supposed to do. And then serving others, and they still do that today. Like I said, if you see a group of men cleaning out the drains on the city streets, that's the Masons. And they're not spring chickens.
Have you interviewed a whole lot of people at the churches and the children of a lot of the elders who are very influential in the black community? And are there diaries and things?
You wanted to know if I interviewed older African Americans?
And the children
I'm working on the kids now because now they're old. Yeah, the next batch who's turning 80s. The last group, I spent 2 days. Daniel was nice enough to let me use the History Center, and I contacted everybody I knew and set up 2 days and had them come every hour and got as many as I could. There are more that have moved away, and they're willing to come back and tell their stories about what it was like to grow up in Bloomington. And Indiana Landmarks has a Black Preservation Program. And they heard about what I was doing here in Bloomington, which I started 15, 20 years ago. So now they want to have an archive in the state, at the State Museum, of all of these I have videotaped interviews. And so now they want to encourage other people to do it. And they want to kind of save it like the WPA when they went around and interviewed the last slaves. Well, they want to do it like that. They want to archive it. So I've got a lot of work to get everything edited and arranged and finish up.
I just wanted to know if the churches have lots of records.
No, they don't. Before I became a member of Second Baptist, somebody decided stuff got wet and they throw it away. So if you don't have somebody really interested in it, stuff gets tossed. I've really been trying hard to get African Americans here in this community to donate their stuff to Daniel, to save it. I've seen some neat stuff. The circus here. Who did the work for the circus? Who cooked the food? Who trained the animals? The Johnson family. I'd sure love to have those photos. They're holding on to them. When the old folks die off, what are the young people going to do?
I'm curious if, as part of your research, you've heard much about integration or segregation in other major employers in Bloomington. Also made me wonder if you've heard much about integration or segregation of labor unions. Has any of your research touched on that?
I have not taken the time to research that. I just know about Showers Building because all the people talked about. But at that time, entrepreneurship among blacks was high everywhere across the country. It's not that way anymore. Anybody knew about Indiana Avenue, downtown Indianapolis? No. One building is left, Madam Walker Building. Anybody heard of Bill Street? in Memphis, gone. Harlem, gone. So the history of African Americans everywhere. In Oklahoma, there were over 100 all-black cities and towns, including Black Wall Street. 5 are left. 5. And just don't even talk about the history there, that at some point it seems like it's been outlawed to talk about it. I'm willing to go to jail. I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to tell you the truth. It may not be pretty, but it's our shared history. It's our history, okay? Yours and mine. And each individual in here has some good days and some bad days. You weren't always good. I bet you look back on your life, most of you got gray hair. I bet you can look back and say, boy, I wish I could have a do-over. You know that during your life, maybe one day, you hit it on the nail on the head. You had a good day, you treated people right, but I bet there's a time or two you've treated somebody bad. That's history. All over the world, we're humans. And for the most part, it seems like we're not really that bright. We keep making the same mistakes over and over. But as long as we talk to each other and we realize that we're human, we're here for a short length of time, from the time you were born. Look at us now. Did you ever think you was gonna live to be this age? Your knees is hurting, your back is hurting, you go into a room and you don't know why you're there. You're looking for your glasses and they're right here. Any other questions? Yes.
I'd like to know a little bit about you. How and when did you get interested in doing this fabulous history? And how did you go about it at first?
Well, I've always liked history, didn't really like learning it in class. My family did a good job of talking about our history. And I knew one branch of my family came from Watford, England. My maiden name is Watford. Our family is proud. If you go to Indianapolis and mention the last name Watford, people will know who we are. My grandfather was the nation's leading scorer in collegiate football. There's a football field named after him in Indianapolis. And after he passed away, my family created the CAW Football League, so any child in Indianapolis can play football for $10. We still have that going on. We still have our family home, and just got started with my own history and who I am and where I come from. England, Ireland, Norway, Germany, North America, I mean, you name it. I'm a child of the world. My family was busy traveling and making babies. And so Ancestry.com let me know that within the world, there are over 26,000 people connected to me through DNA. So I come to the realization that there's some things I've heard is true. Civilization started in Africa, in one place. So that means, to me, we're all African Americans. And so for my family history, education was important. And so I just started from there. I really got interested in the history in Indianapolis. I moved here because of my husband's job. After the affirmative action lawsuit, he was able to get a job as a state police officer, which that's another documentary I've already started working on to tell that story. And it will be called Chasing the Stripe. That car was called The Stripe, and what he went through and other officers, black men, went through to become state police. That story needs to be told. And so I got interested in people here, and I made a family for myself here and started listening to their stories. And I thought, wow, Bloomington was unique, because the people, the older people that have now died off told me they grew up with white people on the West Side. They were kids together. They played together. They spent the night at each other's homes. I go, what? They ate meals together. They were together until they got up to go to school. Politics wasn't the people. and how they had friends. So when we would attend different affairs here, and I'd say, well, invite your friends. I'd like to meet other people. They'd show up with all these white people. And I thought, you grew up like this? You didn't do that in Indianapolis. It was really segregated until I got to high school and I integrated. I was one of the first black kids. There was 67 of us that integrated Arlington High School in 1967. 3,000 kids went to that school. In 1967, they shipped 67 black kids. That's another documentary. I never want to do that again.
You mentioned a family named Chandler who started a
Oh, yeah.
I was just, it's not an unusual name. I was just wondering if that was the family of Reverend Marvin Chandler.
Yes, that's his family. Yeah, they came from North Carolina. They were Irish and black and settled in the creek. I did a documentary about Marvin Chandler. If you go to YouTube, Marvin Chandler, Open to the Moment. He was a pastor for a little bit of Second Baptist Church. He went over and pastored Bethel. He was an airplane pilot, a negotiator for the Attica prison riots. He flew Martin Luther King. When I sat down and heard that man's story, I go, gotta tell it. It bothered me when I make documentaries, what's on the cutting room floor? I gotta ask myself, what story am I gonna tell? And so a lot of good stuff about him landed on the floor because I wanted to tell about him being a minister and a jazz musician. He's in Indiana Jazz Hall of Fame. Played with the best, knew everybody. And so Lady Day, what's Lady Day's real name? Yeah, she was at his house all the time and babysitted his kids. 2 of his daughters live in Bloomington now. They're gonna build a daycare center or something after Marvin Chandler. He grew up on 11th Street. Bunch of kids, marvelous family.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Let's give another round of applause for Elizabeth Mitchell. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. So, as you know, in historic preservation world, things usually need to be at least 50 years old for us to consider designating them. And 50, the closer I get, I'm like, yeah, it's not that old. But BRI is going to turn 50 next year. So we're really looking forward to lots of things moving into the future, looking ahead, reflecting on the past, looking at our own history as an organization. So, and then also it's a U.S. semi-quincentennial. So the U.S. will be 250 years old. The other name for it is quarter millennial, and that sounds like what my grandchildren would be as quarter millennial. So I think semi-quincentennial or 250th sounds good. So we thank all of you for your role in historic preservation, keeping these stories, the buildings connected with them, the other structures like the walls. Like I said, we love when you're the eyes and ears. If you haven't been to the Hinklegarten Farmstead for open days, try to make a point to come out for that. When you drive by, enjoy the 1920s paint colors on the building there now. We thank all of you for being here tonight and for your membership at BRI, and we look forward to being in touch with you and hearing from you in the future. Thank you very much. Feel free to take any remaining pizza if you have hungry ones at home.